You know what? Sam is probably going to kill me. These are the last two, but I think this is a just cause. So tell me, Mr. Simmons, when was the last time you enjoyed a semi-cold beer with a friend?
It reminds me of ball games and 4th of Julys with Wanda. Salt air, sand between our toes. I had forgotten so much.
Like I said, Spawn, it's the little things that count in the end. Enjoy it. I believe you deserve it. Besides, if this podcast doesn't work, this could be the last one for both of us.
What's happening, Hellspawn? Welcome to a very special episode of Spawnography, as are not they all. This one in particular is very exciting. We'll get into why, but first, my name is George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. With me, as always, is
Pierce Lyden, pronouns they, them. How's it going, George?
It's going great. And right off the bat, I'll go ahead and say the reason I'm so excited and the reason it's so special is this is our 1-year anniversary episode. 1 year since we started releasing Spawnography to your very beautiful ear holes.
It's been a year of releasing episodes, which is really cool. And 52, I guess, is not technically, unless you're the DC Universe, 52, not an important number. But we're not the DC Universe. This is not a DC Universe podcast.
No, but I am happy to say that this podcast coincidentally does mark the reinstatement of the multiverse. So,
perfect.
Yeah, just by happenstance.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it had to happen sometime.
That's right. What better time than here?
Right, and hopefully neither of us ends up like punching the source wall or whatever happens in 52.
Actually,
that happens in Infinite Crisis, right?
Yeah, that leads to 52. At this point, honestly, I could kind of go with a few punches on the source wall. just see what shakes out.
Shake things back to normal or more weird or just better.
That's right.
Better
it's like in a game when you have the undo button and then you get to take the turn again, but you don't know if it's going to go just as good or even worse. Maybe we take a few punches on that source wall and find out.
Superboy Prime, get on it.
That's right.
But
the hero we need, the hero we deserve, whatever. I can't remember how it goes.
How's your week going otherwise?
It's a pretty fucked up week to be living in this reality, but I'm getting through it by just focusing on my friends and my family, getting some cats. They're coming tomorrow. This has been in the works for a long time. Yes, thank you. My partner, Killian, with whomst I live.
We're talking tigers. We're talking leopards. We're talking...
Well, they're a little spotty and stripy, so kind of, yes. They're 2 little house cats, and I am very excited to meet them. She has met them. I have not. It's been a little while in the works, so I'm very excited for it. I haven't had cats in a while now. Yeah. Congrats. And, something I want to say up front real quick related to something we were talking about earlier, and I'll make this very brief, but I want to make a very pointed statement just because it's the only platform I have really to say this. And just really quick, again, my views are not reflected by those of my employer, but in some ways I know they are reflected by many of my friends and coworkers. So that said, they're mine and hopefully Pierce's, but we don't make our identities or our beliefs or our politics a secret on this podcast. We don't hold it in or hide it. It's often not the thing that we're necessarily focusing on because we have a very specific comic we're talking about and we like talking about Spawn. In some ways, getting to do this is our escape from a lot of that bullshit because we're spending time with a friend or friends in the case of having a guest, But if you have any problem with trans people or immigrants or people of color or women or people who get abortions or the list goes on, anyone who's not a cis white Christian male of means, who is fully abled. If you have problems with anybody who doesn't fit those categories, just go fuck yourself. That's all I have to say. That's all it takes. That's all you can do to help is go fuck yourself. And so, yeah, that's it. This is a place that's safe for all people who want to talk about Spawn, no matter who they are. But we have a no assholes policy. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to if you didn't. But yeah, generally in the year that we've been doing this show, I have great interactions with the Spawn community, as it were. I have recently had some not like terrible personally interactions, but just, hey, folks, the things that you write on the internet are out there for anybody to comment on. And, I obviously Spawn is not ours. We're not Todd McFarlane. However, we've covered this in the spawning ground that like Todd on whatever level he is an ally and is not for any sort of hatred. I'm speaking for him a little bit there, but really I'm just kind of trying to
Well, he's
quote
made it
his
clear.
yeah,
He's made
trying
it
to
very
quote
clear that
his
he
letters.
tries to be anti-bigotry
Yeah,
in the things we've read. So,
and the whole point is to make this comic. The comic is inclusive of everyone, and as hosts, like if I see that shit, I'm gonna call it out. So, I'm not naming names right now. There's no point in doing that. I'm not trying to send a mob of the 7 people that listen to us at somebody on the internet. But my point
No.
is that like I don't know, the things that you do matter, and especially right now where every single day feels a little bit like you made a deal with Malbolgia that you don't remember. It's important. It costs nothing to be kind is the thing that I kind of keep repeating. It costs nothing to be kind. And that doesn't mean
That's
if you
probably
don't
nicer
have
than go fuck yourself. But
yeah,
yes, it
yeah.
costs nothing to be kind.
But it really does cost nothing to be kind. And many of the things that I know there's a lot of things going on in the world. They might not have anything to do with you directly. But it costs nothing to be kind to the people that it does affect, and to maybe show some love and understanding to those who live a different experience than you do, and maybe just putting a little less hate out onto a very hateful place, which is the internet in 2025.
Yeah,
is recommended. If I have to recommend something at the top of this podcast, it's that. It's to put something a little bit better into the world. And you don't have to understand it is the other really important part of it. You don't have to understand it, but you have to
be
be
nice
good,
about it.
have to be good to the people around you,
whether
they're friends, family, or strangers. That's not important. So
Yep.
anyway.
Well, that was the message. That was little message corner, and I'm glad that was on both of our minds. But it's just something important to us. And while we're and I can't think of a better way to mark a year in than to say this should be a safe place for anyone who wants to participate. But again, we have a strict no assholes policy. So with that, and no further ado, we've got 2 issues of Spawn to talk about today. Was there anything else you did this week before we get into that wasn't focused on the bullshit of the turmoil of life around us?
No, the personal turmoil aside, not me personally, just,
Right.
dealing with normal bullshit. But you mentioned that you're getting cats. I'm going to a cat show this weekend.
Yes.
The Philadelphia Cat Extravaganza.
Yes. They didn't manage to call it the Cat Extravaganza, and I'm upset about that. You know how much I love a portmanteau.
Same.
I can't help it. But I am also very excited for you that you're going to the Philadelphia Cat Extravaganza. Now I understand exactly why we're recording a couple days earlier than usual, because Pierce has to go to the Cat Extravaganza. I'm going to be living a Cat Extravaganza at my very humble home.
Right.
So
we're
very
both busy
excited
this weekend.
for that. We're both busy with that pussy.
Oh boy. The best
we could
thing
probably
about
delete that part too.
Oh, I'm gonna triple it.
Don't triple it. Don't.
Well, then it's staying in once because this part's funny.
Some people are sensitive about the P word, but me, I have no problem with. I have no problem with vagina.
Okay. Maybe I will cut it. Actually,
yeah.
The thing that's really exciting about the Cat Extravaganza, which now that's what I'm calling it, is that so it's from 10 to 4 p.m., but right behind it are go-karts and arcade and bowling.
What? No,
So
hell
it's
yeah.
kind of the perfect day.
You know how much we love to get out and have fun with the gang on some go-karts and some bowling and shit.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, I never grew out of it. How could you?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Anyway, we've got two issues today. We're still in the middle of what Blake Whitlow. Thank you for the Spawn reading order. Everybody, if you need the Spawn reading order, Google Spawn reading order. You'll find it. It's a great Google Doc. We have two issues. They are within what has been called the Devil Inside arc. It's 11 issues or so. Now, the Devil Inside, that two-parter is finished. We just covered that with Rob Duenas. Thank you, Rob, for being on the show.
Really yeah, it was fantastic.
But it kind of continues here. We still have a lot of fallout. We ended issue 82 with a reveal that a character that people have been clamoring for in the letters columns is back, and that is Jason Wynn. And issue 83 will actually have his ugly mug right on the cover.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Looking totally money. This is the era of Swingers, right? He looks very like
it's 1999. Yeah, Swingers 99. Is 98,
7 maybe 98.
Yeah. Feels 97.
96. It feels like a very 1997 movie. I don't fucking know.
Couldn't make a movie like that today.
That's right, because it sucks, and they only make good movies in 2025.
It's because they made it already, so they wouldn't make it again.
Well, you wish that was true, but then you see all the remakes that they're definitely still clamoring to do. Anyway, we're gonna get back to old Jason Wynn, and that's gonna dovetail with his old buddy Billy Kincaid's involvement in the book lately. Before we get into any further elements of the story, Pierce, go ahead and hit me with those credits.
All right, this is Spawn number 83. Todd McFarlane and Image Comics present The Conqueror. Plot by Todd McFarlane and Brian Holguin. Story by Brian Holguin. Penciler Greg Capullo. Inker Danny Migi. Copy editor and lettering Tom Orzechowski. Colors by Dan Kemp, Brian Haberlin, and Dave Kemp. Cover art by Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane. Dedicated to Philip Ozerski. Do you know who that is?
The name rings a bell, but I can't say it off the top of my head. So
that is the person who caught the 70th home run ball hit by Mark McGwire.
Not at all anywhere near my head. I'm sure I've heard that name before, but that's great. You know, I bet Todd is real excited about that, and I bet that guy's real glad he got $3 million for a baseball.
Pretty sick. Just for showing up at the game and catching the ball.
Yeah. I'm sure at least some of that went to like Christie's or whatever it was, or Sotheby's. But,
that's true. And
but I mean, he probably got a good, cool mill out of that at least. Plus,
Philip Ozerski, come on the pod.
Come on the podcast. Talk about baseball with Pierce. Honestly, though, in 1999, if you hit like $1.5 million, you could have lived off of that for a good the next 20 years. At least until 2008.
Listen, invest a little bit in Lockheed Martin.
That's right. Go. Yeah. Oh, I can't endorse that more.
It's my favorite dragon.
That's why we are sponsored by Lockheed Martin. No, someone's gonna take that seriously. We are not. I saw a meme that was like, they're cutting CIA agents, and the meme was like, going to be a lot of farewell episodes on podcasts this week.
So we open up this issue with our old friend Ethan Crone.
Our old buddy.
Yeah, legally distinct from any other writer who may or may not be getting into a legal dispute with the creator of Spawn.
Or anyone else at this time.
Right.
Not legally distinct from any real person prone to legal disputes.
Exactly.
That said, I couldn't help but read this in one person who is prone to legal disputes voice. We've said it before, and we'll say it again. Rob.
I love being a turtle.
Rob. Yeah, that's right.
So one thing I really like is that I complained a little bit about this in the last issue, that when Crone is narrating, his narration looks just like any of the regular omniscient narration. It's just in a slightly different color. Here, he's typing up his next great American novel. And so everything's in more of like a computery font, and it has a little computer screen. around it. Very, very helpful, considering that Brian Holguin, I mean, the man must love Chris Claremont, because
Yeah.
the angry Claremontian narrators all over this, you needed to distinguish it from this because it's basically the same voice, but one knows everything that's happening and one is Ethan Crone.
Is what if Claremont wrote In Cold Blood, is how I read this.
Yeah, that tracks. He's talking about how we lead lives of quiet obedience, tell ourselves that it's our own good nature, the higher angels of our being that keep us from the path of destruction. That's a
But each of
lie.
us, each of us is closer to the brink of madness than we would ever care to admit. It's basically just like some Joker shit. And he's recounting all these recent murders of people that we know are likely connected to Billy Kincaid because they're big surprises, like a lunch lady who goes on a poisoning spree. Strychnine. She's boy, I wanted to make a lunch lady land joke, like a Adam Sandler lunch lady joke. Shit used to crack my ass up. And then like a guy goes on a shooting spree and jumps off a bridge. Another guy kills himself and a bunch of other people in an elevator. And through it all, Ethan Crone is documenting these many seemingly random acts of violence. His latest work being seemingly, apparently, to chronicle whatever this is. We know, and we are given an indication in the art here at the last bit of this montage of the different death scenes, that this is all the work of the ghastly spirit of Billy Kincaid, who is possessing people and essentially turning them into his death slaves.
Yeah. And Ethan Crone is essentially the worst guy in your freshman creative writing and freshman philosophy class. Like, his writing at the end is like 3 more pearls on a lengthening string of violence as we race headlong toward the end of history. Something has gone terribly wrong. There's blood in the water, folks. What is it that's driving so many people over the edge? What could possibly be possessing them? The answer? Their own humanity. Okay, buddy.
Edgelord alert.
I know that.
Yeah.
This is like all the journalism students I went to school with who just were like, I want to be like Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh,
And
cool, man. Well, go get hammered instead of being in school.
To the point where one in one of my like Lit of J classes, like literature of journalism, which was more about writing these like long form features, one dude literally was like, they were like, what are you writing your thing on? And he was like, took some acid, went to the like fiber festival, which is like
no
where
one's
there's
ever
like
done that before.
bunch of sheep or whatever, and it sucked. So
I bet it was insanely bad. I will say I did actually kind of like 3 more pearls on a lengthening string of violence because of the detail of the pearls.
Yeah, that was
previous kind of. It's just a little bit of a connection for my brain, but it is very.
It feels like Holguin is like yes-anding. Okay, Todd, you really like Frank Miller. You also write the way that you write, and I don't want to change the tone of the book. So I'm just going to do what you do and maybe kind of amp it up a little bit within a character, which Crone kind of lets him get that out. And then what's kind of fun is, and I think that this is true of pretty much all the characters. Interestingly, I think the one character he doesn't have a great handle on might be Spawn. And Spawn is kind of pushed in these 2 issues a bit toward the background, I would argue.
We'll get into Spawn. Wow, I tripped over my tongue real bad. We'll get into Spawn and how he fits into this story, because I think it is kind of both. It feels like a step backward in some ways, but I think it's actually a step forward in others. Catching up with Spawn right away, we find out very specifically Kincaid is back. And this is narration from Spawn. I like this whole page, it's so Spawn sick. Basically saying, like, I thought I was doing the world a solid favor when I sent that scumbag to hell. Then he says, no, that's not true. I wasn't thinking anything. I just did it. You hurt innocent kids and kill them. You deserve to die. Simple as that. But the joke was on me. Killing him only made him stronger. And that's basically the thesis of this whole page is Spawn lamenting that. The art is him flying through the air over the sky, over the city sky, with like a big moon in the background and all these bats. His one big boot is rendered in a funny way here. it doesn't have like his foot sticking out. It's
Oh
instead
yeah.
like this like oval shape thing, but
It's
it's
almost like
still,
it's a shoe also.
yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's all good. I love this page and I love this image of Spawn. I love that we're kicking off pretty early with some great imagery. This issue is going to have some of the all-time great Spawn images. There's one in particular coming up that is just mwah, I honestly want a poster of it so bad.
We've said in like recent episodes, I think, that there's some one of the things that it feels like is Greg kind of maybe running into a deadline, right? A few less backgrounds, a lot more swaths of color in the background, uh, a little less detail in the art, and here we're just we're full steam ahead. Everything's awesome. The whole art team is really killing it.
And maybe we're getting a little more starry sky and a little less like cityscape than we might in some images from Greg Capullo of Big Spawn splash page, but this one really works. It's really cool, and of course it's an upward angle. It's just so cool. The drawing of Spawn is great, and we're going to, again, I just can't reiterate enough that this issue, if you are only buying a few of these to read, you're not necessarily keeping up issue by issue, this is a cool one to get because the art actually really rocks.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's also a funny bit right on the next page where Sam and Twitch are sitting around in their car and Sam is going, $3 million, $3 million freaking dollars for a goddamn baseball. And then he starts choking on his donuts. And they're not even hiding that they're talking about the old Todd father's purchase of the baseball we mentioned at the very start of the show. Sam is saying, can you believe it? You and me put together are worth less than one stitch on that sucker. And the Twitch basically says it does seem excessive. Still, if he can afford it. And Sam says, oh, and get this. He's from Canada, crown jewel of America's pastime, bought up by some nutty foreigner, goddamn NAFTA, which is very 90s, but
Yeah.
also very 2025 for of an opinion for someone to have.
Do you mean two people not understanding how international politics work?
Or just an American deciding that they fucking hate Canada or whatever or something.
I like that they're reading Sports Beat essentially, and we get a picture of Todd with the baseball just kind of superimposed in there.
Yes, exactly. It's such a silly picture of Todd, like the angle on it. Like I love it. It's Todd making fun of himself and acknowledging like, okay, I get it. It's been like it's probably was like a fucking late night joke or whatever. But
But and then on the next page, Spawn is going to emasculate our detectives, or our PIs rather, first, because
yeah,
he
he
tends to do
will.
that every time. He always says like, "Hey girls," like I don't know what.
He kind of has a drill sergeant voice when he talks to them
I
because he
guess
was in the
so.
military. And I think about like R. Lee Ermey being like, all right, ladies, and saying a bunch of
True.
like horrible shit. And like, that's the least offensive way you could probably do it there. In issues not that long past from this one, people have said much worse words.
That's true. Uh, the thing that this page brings up, what I don't really love about these two issues, which is Spawn is like, people are dying out there. I want you to stop screwing around and figure out how to stop Kincaid. There is nothing to indicate that Sam and Twitch know how to stop a ghost. There hasn't been anything to indicate that. There,
Right.
Spawn doesn't know how to do it.
Well, I
Cagliostro
think,
hasn't told him how to do it.
okay, I was thinking about that at this part, and you are making an exactly correct and very astute point. And my only thought in rebuttal to it, and not even in rebuttal, but my no prize answer for that is we just had Spawn saying to himself, I don't know what the fuck to do. What
Hmm.
I did fucked things up. So I think he's hoping for Sam and Twitch to figure it out. At the same time, they are not paranormal detectives
Yeah,
or like wizards. The only wizard he knows is already working on it.
right. So
And I think he just is trying to get control by it, but it feels very much like when Clown used to show up to Jason Wynn and be like, you need to fuck with Spawn. And Jason Wynn would be like, what do you mean?
I don't even know where this guy is or who he is or anything. You could
Yeah.
help me out here. So they basically Twitch kind of pushes back a little bit and is like, we're doing everything we can, and like I know what's at stake. They've threatened, he's threatened my wife and my child, and I like that he stands up to Spawn there, and that's going to become a running theme in these two issues. And
Love the art on
Spawn
this page
respects it.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
it's really good.
does. He kind of handles it. Twitch and Spawn will have a cool bond forming in these next couple issues, and we'll talk about that. But I do love the art. I especially love the two close-ups of Twitch's face and Spawn's face at the bottom of the page. Both of those very cool, and I like that it kind of foreshadows them coming face to face in a very different kind of moment later on, where Twitch is here and later just totally nonplussed by seeing Spawn's dead, desiccated face. He's just not fazed by it at all. And I think that's something that will become important to Spawn. Sam looks surprised and angry. He doesn't necessarily look like he's grossed out by Spawn, but I love that look of sort of like shocked anger on his face there.
Kind of like determined annoyance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. We're going to cut to somebody we haven't seen in a while, and that's Jason Wynn, and he's getting sort of like a debrief about a shipment, and there's no witnesses and blah blah blah. And as the guy leaves, the agent leaves, Wynn uses some of his power to basically have the guy killed.
Smithers, have the Rolling Stones killed.
But at the same time, we're now going to get kind of a quiet moment for Jason Wynn after this guy leaves, and we get this page where it says Jason Wynn is a man on the edge. Former director of the U.S. government security, he was recently reassigned to head a new sensitive operations task force. No one would dare call it a demotion to his face, but he knows that's just what it is. The last time that we saw Wynn was when Spawn basically was threatening him and was like, I could kill you where you stand whenever I want. And here we're seeing that
he's kind of having this weird vision in the smoke of his cigar of a child begging for mercy. And then as the whiff of smoke fades away, we see in its kind of last wisps the now notorious trademark grin and like grimace eyes of Billy Kincaid, who has ties to Jason Wynn. Jason Wynn kind of hired him to do murder, to kill a senator's kid. And got him out of jail on a technicality. That's how he wound up getting killed by Spawn. That's how Sam and Twitch wound up. That's really the like beginning moment of everything that's happened in Spawn, kind of since Spawn number 5.
Yeah. And I like this narration giving this character a little bit more depth. Jason Wynn is a man who craves one thing above all else, control. But there's something else inside him, something reckless and ruthless. We've not really gotten to know Jason Wynn besides him being kind of this government guy.
But we've seen the like Genghis Khan thing before. It was in, I think it was in the Cygor issues, or maybe it was either Cygor. It was Cygor, yeah. Where like Jason Wynn has this killer inside of him that's just like willing to do any ruthless thing. But here, it's kind of nudged in a very uncontrolled direction, opposed to Jason Wynn's own will, by none other than Billy Kincaid.
Right. Billy's kind of like feeding on that aspect of Jason Wynn's personality or mindset or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe amplifying it in some way.
He seized on Jason Wynn as the next target to become one of his ghost army of like sad murderers sent to hell by accident. Because again, what he's doing is Billy Kincaid, Ghost Billy Kincaid, is possessing people, having them do some unspeakable act of murder, and then they die either by their own hand or as a part of what's happened to them, and become one of his ghost kind of like soldiers in Malbolgia's army. He's made a similar deal to Spawn, but rather than being a hellspawn on Earth, he's just a fucking ghost.
And we'll find out more about that in the spawning ground. So put a pin in that.
We will.
The aspect of Billy Kincaid, because Todd explains it pretty much outright. if anybody was confused as to why Billy Kincaid is a ghost, he was a Spawn in Spawn number 8. He had a Spawn suit,
Yes,
but
he
he's not a
was.
Spawn on Earth. So we'll get into it.
Yeah.
We cut to Sam and Twitch. They're back at their office, and everything's been repoed. So despite the fact that they saved the city from the exterminator, it did not come with the riches and recognition that they thought it would, at least not long term. And they don't have money, and they're working for Spawn, and Spawn doesn't pay well either. And
No.
I like this because Sam is frustrated, and Twitch is so determined and focused on finding Billy Kincaid, because for Twitch this has become extremely personal.
Yeah.
And Sam asks him, like, how do you stay so calm? And he's like, I because if I'm calm, I'm able to do this job, and if I let my emotions get the better of me, I could get sloppy, and if I get sloppy, I could miss something, and if I miss something, then it could spell disaster. So I'm
Yeah.
going, and like, I like when he's like, if he ever goes near my family again, I'll send him to hell myself. I don't know. It's just fun. I love Twitch in these two issues.
Yeah.
We've said it so many times. They're characters that we miss when they don't show up for a while, and it's because they really are the heart and soul of the book. And
The fact that they've been so close to Spawn is great. They make a great
Yeah.
human foil. Up next, so the end of their conversation is Sam saying, so speaking of missing items, what did you end up doing with the severed head that Billy left us as a Valentine? And Twitch says, don't worry about that. I had a friend take care of it. We know that was Spawn.
Yeah.
Twitch gave it to Spawn, which I kind of like that he's like Twitch's severed head guy. He's like, yeah, I got a head guy, sir.
Don't worry about it.
But that leads us to one of the coolest Spawn splash pages of all time. I want this as a massive poster.
We've seen a similar version of this before, but it is just a great one to go back to. Spawn on the throne with sort of the skull like Hamlet. It's great.
I just love this rendering of it.
Yeah.
The big black swath there in particular, the way his cape is like sitting down. This one in particular looks like the sickest Spawn poster you could have on your wall to me. Like, especially for this era of Spawn in a nutshell. Just like him sitting on the corpse throne holding a skull, brooding. It rules. Peak Capullo Spawn.
Totally. So we cut to a diner in the village just after midnight, and the bells ring. A hulking figure kind of walks in, table for one. He declines. Cut to Genghis Khan, and we realize, oh shit, it's Jason Wynn, and he pulls out a revolver. Not a revolver. He pulls out a gun, a pistol, and he just starts lighting up everything. And
he goes very Michael Corleone.
Yeah, we get this kind of like interstitial between like the Genghis Khan stuff and what's happening.
So that's what the narration is at the beginning. It says the great conqueror approached the village just after midnight. He heard the peal of alarm bells as the enemy camp sprung to alert. And like it kind of is showing that in his mind, he is Genghis Khan entering a village and doing slaughter. While what his body is doing is killing all these people in the diner under the possession of Billy Kincaid. So it's a very kind of like brutal, like the baby doll goes flying.
This is brutal, but at the same time, this whole sequence there's a lot more restraint shown than what we just got in the last two issues.
Yeah.
Where like, I don't know,
a couple issues ago where it was like very sexualized. Yeah. No, it's better than that. It's just very like, I don't know. We're solidly in the like horror noir kind of era here. And this next page is so sick of Jason Wynn in his like mind as the like Genghis Khan figure with fire in his eyes, and he burns down the entire Full Moon Diner, leaving all the corpses in his wake to burn and everything, much like the conqueror he is in his mind, burning and pillaging a village. But there'll be more to it than that. He doesn't have the same fate as some of Kincaid's other victims, and we'll get to that. But first, we have a catch up with Sam and Twitch and what's his name? SOS, Silbert.
Yep. They arrive on the scene of the burned down diner or burning diner, and they don't have any leads, and they're just like,
yeah,
what do we? But Silbert is now starting to suspect Sam and Twitch a little bit. He's like, I feel like you guys know more than you're letting on, and I'm not really sure what's going on. As he kind of says that, we see Spawn nearby, kind of surveying the damage as well, and just being like, okay, being nearby. I do think this speaks a little bit to like Twitch's weird connection now to Spawn. It feels like it goes both ways a little bit, but
yeah,
we're gonna cut to Jason Wynn waking up in with a heart on his stomach.
Yeah, laying in the gutter with a heart that he carried away from the people he murdered on his stomach.
I like it as a callback to sort of the Violator stuff at the very beginning of Spawn.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh God damn it," and like washes it off into the drain, and the heart just goes down into the sewer. And he's like, "How did I get here?" He goes running off. He tries to make a call on his cell phone, but he gets jumped. His cell phone breaks. He gets beaten up and left. Or his cell phone is stolen, and he gets beaten up and left bleeding in the gutter. Meanwhile, back in Bowery, known as Rat City, Spawn is going back to the dead zone. And he is on his knees begging to the sky, to the heavens, what do you want from me? And he goes into the dead zone where his costume goes limp and his chains get heavy. I love the panel where it says as he crosses the threshold into the dead zone, he feels his powers drained from him.
Yeah, so
I just love the framing of his feet there. One big boot. And I love the next panel of his droopy cape and the rain making him all wet as like you see the mask shape kind of in the shadows.
This is the kind of stuff where I think it was either last episode or an episode before that where I was like, I don't know, just make the backgrounds black.
Yeah.
Just make them black. It works so much better for the book.
Yeah. No, it looks great here. And I like that he's saying, what do you want from me, damn it? Is this all just a game to you? As he's just like cursing heaven, which raises a deaf ear to him. As he's weak and powerless, he collapses under the weight of his own titanic guilt. Who should arrive but Cagliostro, who tells him they need to talk. And this is, in some ways, a step forward. It seems like a step backward because it's Spawn going, what do I do? What do you want from me? But it's kind of more of a step forward because instead of begging Cagliostro to tell him what to do, he's basically trying to at least confront the heavens on his own accord.
He's finally accepted what's happening to him on some level. Like, I think in the first, 30 issues of Spawn, he's just struggling with the fact that he's a Spawn. At this point, he's made peace, whatever that looks like, with being a Hellspawn, right? He has sort of given up on the idea that he'll be a person again. He loves Wanda still, but he has kind of given up on sort of getting her back. Those things have become secondary. Regaining his humanity has become secondary. And his humanity becoming secondary is kind of interesting, especially as he gets closer to two humans specifically.
There'll be some conversation about that coming up.
But at the same time, he is now almost ready to sort of give himself over to his fate and his calling and his circumstance. And I kind of love him going to the dead zone because that is where Granny Blake was able to find some solace, right? And some closure, right? And partly that was Spawn doing so, but Spawn is recognizing this place as a place of great power, and that Hell and Malbolgia are not going to help him. Cagliostro is stuck in between and can only help so much. Obviously, he's met God, but I guess he doesn't technically know that he's met God at this point. But the angels he knows kind of can't help him, but maybe there's something else. And he's
because of Bootsy, especially. True. He's had some exposure now to the idea that there's a bigger thing for heaven and there's a bigger aspect of who is part of each of these sides. And he also has now been told very explicitly what his role in all this is.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that he's now trying to employ some of that knowledge. And at least this time he's trying to ask, what do I do? What do I do? He said that before, but this time he's got a specific problem. What do I do about Billy Kincaid?
Right.
How do I deal with this? What
Right.
am I supposed to do? Surely heaven has an answer for how to deal with a demon ghost, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like Billy is so specifically from hell, right? He's such like everything about him is evil and terrible. And so Al is just going back to the thing he knows to be the opposite of that, even if heaven at this point has not really proven itself to him to be an equal and opposite force, because it sort of does want the same things as hell.
But he's trying something new.
Right, exactly. And the next morning, we're going to find Jason Wynn waking up. Bobby's going to find him and try to help him.
Yeah, people are just like stepping over him and like scorning him and stuff.
Yeah, and he just doesn't even know who he is. But Bobby's going to help him before we get the return of the talking heads.
That's right. Yeah, Bobby takes Jason Wynn under his wing, so he's going to get him some food. And yes, here are the talking heads, and they're all talking about the massacre at the Full Moon Diner. Except for, well, at least the first one is the CNR person, now no longer CNN, now CNR, not Connie Chung, is talking about the massacre and asking if anybody has the information. The infotainment guy, who's regrown his mustache to show that he is once again canonically the first queer character in Spawn.
Thank God.
Thank God, and thank Todd. Is talking about how
Star
everyone
Wars
in the Western Hemisphere is so excited about it. Doesn't go named, but he clearly alludes to Star Wars Episode 1, which means this is 1999.
Yep.
Now, somehow, through the magic of comic book time, we have caught up to the real world time, and we're talking about real world Todd buying a baseball. We're talking about the Phantom Menace.
Here's the
it's
thing.
all here.
It doesn't ever say Star Wars.
No, it doesn't.
So what it could be, this could be 1997. It could be about the Lost World Jurassic Park.
Well, he says it's the one from a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, does he?
Which we all know is Jurassic Park.
I was trying to no prize it into some sort of other, because the timeline has not worked at all.
What it could be, if we really want to go there, is it could be the earlier re-release from 1997.
That is true. Oh, for the 20th anniversary. It also could be that in the Spawn universe, Galaxy Far, Far Away is a Star Trek thing.
Or a Jurassic Park thing.
Right.
So,
our last
Jurassic Park was on the moon.
That's going to be the next one. The last talking head is our conspiracy theorist from Channel X, who's the only one who seems to know stuff.
He's always talking about, like, he knows actual CIA shit.
Yeah, he's your conspiracy friend who then you find out he was right all along.
Like somehow actually did know a guy who knew a guy or whatever.
Yeah, and he's just talking about Jason Wynn's demotion, essentially.
And saying that as for who has their boot on Wynn's neck, well, it could be almost anybody, because that little bitch has a lot of enemies.
And that's going to bring us to Spawn number 84. Todd McFarlane and Image Comics present The Waiting. Plot by Todd McFarlane. And Brian
that's
Holguin.
The hardest part.
Yeah. Story by Brian Holguin. Penciler Greg Capullo. Inker Danny Meeke. Copy editor and lettering by Tom Orzechowski. Colors by Dan Kemp, Brian Haberlin, and Dave Kemp. Cover art by Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane. Dedicated to Mike Barnes, who I forgot to look up. Mike Barnes, who are you?
Probably some baseball guy.
You know, he is one of the guys that loses to Johnny Lawrence in The Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah. That's probably the reference.
Maybe? Yeah, that's all that comes up. So this is dedicated to a fictional character. I doubt that that's actually the case. But
yeah,
we're going to open with a couple of shots of Cyan. However, some alarming dialogue. in some alarming
Yeah,
word balloons.
it's the specter of Billy Kincaid looming over her, talking about how much he loves kids. And he says he could eat her up with a
Yikes.
spoon, reference to the ice cream man. Given what we know about him, that he is a child, a predator, and murderer, this is extremely upsetting because, especially in this last panel, he's holding Cyan on his shoulder as she's asleep. Now, as much as I think this is a creepy and scary page, as it's meant to be, I also do really love the cartooning here.
That's incredible.
Cyan's face is the best it's ever been drawn, her sleeping there. Like, that's just it's really good. And even the panel where Kincaid is holding her with the stuffed animals in the foreground, the staging and everything, it's really well for frickin' drawn.
Yeah, and I really like on the second page, right above, like we get that established, like true kind of half page splash of Billy. Is that in the panel right before we see the little mark on her neck as just this like, oh
Yeah.
fuck, like
Yep.
he's gotten to her, um, which then leads to one of the one of the best pages in all, honestly so far.
Yeah, the last shot there of him holding her with her eyes glowing, and they're all the like freaky like his zombies in the background. That's a great shot, and the colors on this page, I do miss like creepy spectral Billy from that first issue. He has slowly become more tangible as the issues have gone on,
Yeah,
which I think is,
I
as
think
Rob said, maybe a note, also maybe a little intentional because it's even more solid here.
I like that the colorists though are getting that blue kind of in the background still.
Yeah, it
It
still has
does.
that haunting look.
The reason I'm going to agree with Rob here that it's definitely a note is that the word balloons have changed so drastically. It feels like the word balloons are now the thing that is supposed to tip us off to his like nature more
Yeah,
than the colors. Um,
definitely.
and I also do think that his kind of becoming more tangible seeming is his growing power,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. But we get this
But
great page of Spawn right after waking up in his throne, like from a nightmare, just
yeah,
yelling. So
and
cool.
I love the drawing of his face with the green light pouring from inside. His eyes, like this is like a version of like a terrified Spawn that we've not seen before. Like
Yeah.
even when we've seen Spawn, he's been shocked, scared, upset, everything before, but he looks like utterly terrified and shocked beyond belief here. Like, and you get the impression it's because he somehow senses, due to his bond with Cyan, that Billy has taken control. And we'll learn more about that in a second.
So that's going to lead us to Twitch at home, really leaving home. He's got to go work on the case. And he's lamenting the fact that has put his wife in danger, but he can't really tell her what's going on, partly because it's going to make him sound crazy, but also partly because he doesn't want to open her up to any of the evil that he kind of has to deal with on a
Yeah.
daily basis. It's kind of gotten worse. And this is another instance of, I think, subtly Spawn making somebody's life worse. Spawn's interaction with Sam and Twitch has made their lives worse.
Yeah,
And
and Twitch
yeah,
is saying here, like, I'm a logical man, I believe in reason, and this is defying all of that. And just as he's thinking about that, and like you said, lamenting how Spawn's involvement in his life has affected him, who should frickin' appear behind him but Spawn himself? And I love the page of Spawn appearing out of the background, like folding out of his cloak, and Twitch is just sitting there reading. It's the same shot of Twitch over and over, basically, with Spawn materializing behind him. And then he says, "How long are you planning on standing there, Spawn?" And you can't get one over on Twitch. I love it.
it's great.
Something I really like about this and about how he deals with Spawn in general, it starts to set him apart very specifically, even more so from how, say, Batman and Commissioner Gordon interact. Gordon sometimes calls Batman on his shit, but overall there's a sense of awe between them. Gordon, he's always getting snuck up on by Batman. Twitch can't get snuck up on. Spawn can't sneak up on him. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And he will talk to Spawn in a way, we'll see more coming up, that is very interesting and I think very important for Spawn moving forward, especially for Al Simmons as a character.
I think that Twitch recognizes that Spawn needs him and Sam pretty much as they don't really need him at all. But he's foisted this on them, and Twitch owes him for saving his life, and by extension, so does Sam. But they are they can do things that Spawn cannot, and I think Twitch is quick to realize that. I think Sam, that I guess, kind of understands that, but finds Spawn to be more annoying than anything else.
Right.
But Twitch has decided to take this all very seriously since his wife and child were menaced. And so, yeah, he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he's going to believe in ghosts now. Same way he doesn't believe in undead zombie men in capes, but he's going to believe in them now because he should be dead. So at this point, nothing's off the table. And we're gonna catch back up with, we left Bobby and Jason Wynn together at the end of the last issue. We're gonna catch up with them again
in the alleys. It's not necessarily Rat City this time, but yeah, in the alleys. And Jason Wynn's asleep. A rat crawls on his face, waking him up. Now, I will say, I've had a rat crawl on my face, not in the wild. I've had pet rats, and I don't like it. They have weird little feet. They have owl feet, and you shouldn't have a rat's foot on your face. Okay. They don't have, I guess owl feet is an exaggeration. That's really more like a guinea pig. But they have little clinky claws, and like they have bacteria, and you don't want that on your face, especially not an alley rat. And Jason Wynn wakes up. He's shocked and terrified. Bobby shows up, and he's like, "You want some breakfast? I got some donuts from the place up the street." They throw out the olds. Suddenly, as he's taking a bite of the donut, he wakes up and realizes, like, oh my God, I'm out on the street. He's like, get away from me. He brushes Bobby away. He runs away with the donuts. You see Bobby laying on the ground and the donuts beneath his feet with, like, that's a great shot.
This is the most like Claremont that Holguin gets with the script, because in the narration, Jason Wynn is kind of being reprimanded. You know,
a narration is like addressing Jason Wynn.
Yeah, it's like, it's all coming back to you now, isn't it, Jason? Something snapped inside you, took over your mind. It tried to completely envelop you, but you were too strong. Your legendary iron will proved too much for the psychic infiltrator. You fought it off, but not before the damage was done. It's a bit of a blur, isn't it? Like, I love that it just keeps kind of asking. It's like taunting him and asking him questions. I like very specifically that it is not in the colors of Billy Kincaid's speech balloons. It's also not in Ethan Krone's lettering either. This is that gnawing at the back of your skull when you like you know what I kind of liken it to is like waking up after blacking out and you're like, oh shit, did I do something bad or whatever? And it was probably fine. I mean, in this case, it's
that kind of feeling. It's definitely not here. Yeah. But I like that the art of Jason Wynn is positively frantic here. Yeah. Like, at first he's determined. I love the shot of him running away, like framed through Bobby's feet. I love the people like looking at him and his like hair down over his face. It's almost a Venom-y kind of thing in a way. And he runs to a phone booth. Remember those? And I love the shot of his reflection here, where he's looking like very tense, and then as the phone answers, we get the close up on his eyes, and just the acting in those eyes is so perfect, that like Hitchcockian like frantic nervousness.
Yeah, it's one thing that Capullo really excels at, is giving us those really small moments, and one of the things he does when we pull out, not in these panels specifically, but what we've seen before, is he'll sort of give a character a little less detail, but he'll just draw their eyes, like especially when they're specifically a little crazy and bloodshot and kind of like frantic. He just draws their eyes as circles with little dots, and you just get like, oh my God, they're like freaking out. They're like bugging out. Their eyes are like bugging out of their skulls. But then he's able to give you these like close-up moments that are also really able to communicate the frenzy.
There's almost manga-esque quality to his eyes in some ways, the way he uses them to express that much emotion. He's calling his boss, trying to explain what happened. He said it was a lapse of judgment. And his boss is clearly trying to pick him up and find him, probably to take him out because he did something so heinous that it's going to jeopardize their whole operation. And he's saying, "Where are you? Just let me know." Jason Wynn lies, and he says that he's in Coney Island, festive. And that's what he says. "How festive? I'll be right there." But they've traced where his actual call location is to that phone booth. I love the part of the page where they're inside the like tracing office. You've got the guy up front with the smoke hanging out of his mouth. Everybody's like kind of neck down, except for the one operator who's like giving him the location. And well, I kind of love that it's got the quality. You've seen Akira. You know, towards the end of Akira when they're inside the tank and they're like monitoring.
Oh yeah.
It's monitoring Tetsuo's energy signature. Anyway, it looks like that. It's very cool.
Yeah,
I love
coloring's
the
great.
art to this whole sequence.
We're going to cut back to Twitch and Spawn. He apparently is explaining something to Twitch, but we don't get to totally know what it is. Spawn says, "So I talked it over Cagliostro, and that's what we came up with." And Twitch is like, "You sure you want to go through with this?" They're kind of all vague about like what the plan is.
But we know there's a plan now to try and catch Billy Kincaid or stop him. Somehow, with the help of Twitch and Sam and Cagliostro's magical tomes and documents, they're all figuring it out. Twitch is asking him, to be honest, I still don't fully understand exactly what you are. Are you flesh and blood, spirit, something else? Spawn says, "What is this, an interview?" And Twitch says, "No, sir, I'm just curious. Do you eat? Do you sleep?" And Spawn says, "I don't think I need to, but sometimes I do, out of habit, less so these days." Here's where we get something really profound that Twitch kind of explains to Spawn in a way that Cog has never been able to, that the Night People have kind of tried to show him just through their actions and who they are, but that he's never really cottoned on to until this moment, it seems. And it seems to really strike him here. Twitch says, "Perhaps you should start eating again. I'll freely admit that existential protocols are beyond my expertise, but it always struck me that it's the little things that make us human." Spawn says, "Are you under the impression that I'm human?" And Twitch says, "Well, of course you are. Maybe not psychologically, but essentially. Underneath it all, you're a man just as I am. You must be. If not, what's the point of your struggle?" And Spawn kind of pauses. And even in the art, it looks like he's like kind of taken aback a little bit by what Twitch is saying. And Twitch is like, "Spawn, Spawn." And Spawn is just like, "All right, point taken." And that's when Twitch shares a beer with him. And he
specifically
says,
non-alcoholic beers.
That's right. Hey, look at that. I love that because that's the only kind I drink. And he says, "Like I said, Spawn, it's the little things that count in the end. Enjoy it. I believe you deserve it. Besides, if this plan doesn't work, it could be the last one for both of us." And I just love that because for all the time that Spawn has tried to figure out how to be a man, how to regain his humanity, no one's ever really had an answer for him. Cog has always told him, "Forget all that. If you ever want to have anything like peace, you have to eschew your humanity. And to stop Malbolgia and the war between heaven and hell, you have to totally give it up forever." So Cog is telling him to get rid of his humanity altogether. Granny Blake is telling him that she believes in him and she loves him, but she sees him as an angel. She sees that he's transcended humanity. She thinks that he is very much an agent of heaven, an angel. But Twitch is just like, "Hey, man, you want to be my friend? Have a beer." And here's the thing. The Night People have like shared stuff with him before, but they've never had this level of conversation with him, acknowledging who and what he is and looking him in the face, his very creepy dead face as they share these beers, and just saying like, "Look, you have to be a man under all that, right? Because if not, what's this all for?"
Right. He also, I think, is again because it's a great moment for it's Twitch being open to this. Right. He's just like that's why he's asking him these questions. Is like, I don't know what you are, dude. but I guess you are a man because I've read your file and I know stuff about you and I know about your life and I know about the people that matter to you. And Spawn is also finally letting another character in, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't really let Cog in. He definitely doesn't let like any of the night people in. He does not let Terry in further than he can use him to his own ends. He never interacts with Wanda aside from like the one time she's very afraid of him.
Right.
And his interactions with Cyan are a little inconsequential because she cannot speak. So, like, she's a child,
Right.
and
She's a
she doesn't
child.
understand things on
They can't have an adult relationship because she's a child.
Twitch feels like a peer now.
Right. That's the thing. He's never seen the night people as peers because also they come running to him for help.
Right.
Twitch doesn't do that. Twitch isn't saying, I can't help you. He's not saying, help me, Spawn. Get me out of this jam, Spawn. He's trying to help Spawn figure it out, which is also something that, like, rarely do you have someone just working with Spawn. Even when he's got, like, an ally, like, say, Tremor, he treats Tremor like shit and ultimately uses him.
Yeah. And he's learning from that. Thank God.
Yeah.
It's only taken 80 issues.
He's fine. Well, character growth.
Yeah.
So Sam is on the street. He's just hanging out in the alleyways, waiting for someone, presumably trying to figure out. Waiting for someone. He's waiting for
Silbert.
Silbert. I always want to say Silbic for some reason. Silbert. He's waiting for Silbert, and Silbert asks him, "What do you know about the mark? The mark that's been appearing on people's necks?" And at first, Sam's like, "Mark who?" And the guy's like, "Mark who? The mark, the weird little scar thingy." And he explains, that he's noticed the scars on Sarah Frost and the other killers that they found and stuff, the other people that have been involved. Doesn't know what they mean. He's pressing Sam about it, but Sam also doesn't know what they mean, technically.
Yeah. Silbert's getting, it's again, like Silbert kind of is a little on to Sam and Twitch. They know something. He just doesn't know what they know. I like this little bit. I like the page before also where Sam clocks like a fake Rolex on a kid.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I like that while Twitch is also doing his thing, researching, looking at files, talking to Spawn, trying to figure things out, Sam's kind of doing his own thing too, where I love establishing that they're both good at their jobs.
Yeah.
A thing that was frustrating was just like the comic relief kind of slapstick nature of their appearances. Now that they are essential to Spawn figuring this out and doing something, and that they're getting treated more like fully fleshed out characters rather than just tropes, they're so much more satisfying, and you can have them cut in for a page or two, and I'm never annoyed to see them, but I'm also not rolling my eyes at the interaction. So
it's not
I love
taking
this.
us out of the story. Yeah.
This is giving us the continued dynamic between Sam and Twitch and the police force. And
I also love Silbert, this picture of his face in the second to last panel right above the bottom where he looks, it's a very like kind of Jack Kirby-esque, like tough guy cop face.
I was thinking that through a lot of this issue, there's a lot of like JR.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Like some of his Daredevil specifically with the like Annie Nocenti kind of level. I don't know. And Miki's also doing kind of a Klaus Janson-y thing in the inks in places.
Yeah, I could see the comparison. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we catch up with Twitch back at his house where he's trying to tell his wife to take his kids and go get out of town. And she, a strong woman, as we saw, who is not willing to just lay down and let bad things happen to her, as we saw when she was confronted by the guy who was possessed by Billy Kincaid and she stabbed him with a knife. She's kind of resistant to just rolling over and leaving when something bad happens, but Twitch essentially begs her and is like, look, you gotta go. She's also calling him Max. Did we know that his first name was Max before?
Yeah, we know his name is Maximilian.
That's right. That's right. Maximilian. There's this kind of funny shot where you see his like droopy face through her thigh gap as she's walking away.
I was going to say, I do think that that's the worst panel in the book in these two issues. I'm like, I don't know. I get that that's what you wanted to show, but it's such a weird way to show it. I
also don't hate it. I really like her hand.
Yeah, me
like
too.
Her thumb there looks really great.
Also, a lot of great eye acting, a lot of just great, like when we see after they're holding hands, and there's great focus on her wedding ring. We can't see Twitch's at all.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't look like he's wearing his, but she's wearing her wedding ring, and it's kind of right in the middle of the panel. And then we see his like sad eyes in one of his glasses frames, and then we see her full face, and he's like looking down, and then she's angry. Like she immediately goes from like feeling frustrated and sad to feeling a little bit hurt and upset. And so when she stomps away, I'm saying stomps like the art is even giving me more, but I'm imagining her stomping away, And I just love this whole interaction. It gives so much depth to Twitch. I love him hugging his daughter, just kind of wordlessly when she asks, "What's the matter?" It's just good stuff.
Yeah.
It's the kind of family dynamic stuff I wish. Unfortunately, like Wanda and Terry seem like they're just being menaced all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't always get those moments. So, which brings us kind of to the next page, which seems like it's going to be more of that. But I think Holguin is smart to kind of hold back. Wanda's making cookies. Their house does look slightly more Queens, I suppose. It's one of the first times we don't see it at night, which is interesting.
Yeah. There's just no like taller buildings around it or anything
Yeah.
like that, or other like houses visible. Anyway, not that Queens has a lot of like super tall skyscrapers, but you can see taller buildings
Yeah.
in the sky. Anyway, there's a crash from the other room. Wanda drops the cookie she's baking and runs back to the bedroom where Cyan has found and pulled out and draped herself in an American flag that we can assume is the flag that you get when you're a military widow, because Wanda says, "Oh, Cyan, look at the mess. What are you doing in my closet? Oh, God, where did you find that flag? Please, honey, that's very special. It belonged to someone." And Cyan kind of cuts her off and says, "He's scared, Mommy." And she says, "What, Cyan? Who's scared?" And she says, "The sad man," which we know is what she calls Spawn.
Yeah.
"The sad man, he's scared for us. He's trying to protect us, but he's afraid." And Wanda is like, "The sad man?" She just has not been able to figure this out yet, what that is and who that means.
I love this page. I think Cyan looks really great.
Yes, more great
and
cartooning of her face.
really good eye acting. Lots of great
Yes.
cartooning about face cartooning.
Yes.
I mean, Capullo is just living in the pocket right now. He's just killing it. I do think also the script's giving him a lot to do. Holguin's asking a lot of him. He's like, I have a lot of emotions that need to get out here through these characters, and I need you to execute them. And yeah, I'm going to give you a couple of big Spawn moments, not fight scenes, but like cool splashes. However, I really need you to sell the human element of this story, especially as Al searches for his humanity. And I don't mean to make everything sound like a metaphor, but
I mean, it's not.
Yeah. And we're gonna cut to Sam and Twitch catching up. And they go to the Keystone Tavern. It's an old cop bar. It's where presumably they used to go all the time when they
Like
were
the
still on
Keystone
the force.
Cops.
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's a "Go Howard Stern" sign in the window.
Sounds about right for fucking cops.
Yeah. And
there's a picture of them on the wall.
Yep. But they're also talking about what Twitch has essentially done, right? He sent his wife away, and Sam's like, how'd that go? And I just love two friends kind of figuring it out.
Yeah. He's confiding in Sam, and Sam's offering him, support. Again, there's a lot of like, so here's the thing that I wanted to say earlier that I was saving to say for maybe about this time. There's a lot of argument here that Twitch is the best friend.
What's your thought?
You know what I mean? Because even Spawn is becoming best friends with him. Twitch is best friends with him. His wife, of course, he's got an incredibly beautiful and wonderful wife and family, who, unlike most cops, he doesn't seem to be beating the shit out of. I just think there's an argument to say that he's such a supporting character that it really comes through. One of those, a lot of the times in comics, friendships exist because people say they exist. There's a lot of like, let's look at X-Men. There's a lot of like, especially in the last few years, there's a lot of confrontation between Beast and Cyclops, where they are like, Scott, you're my oldest friend, or, Hank, you're my oldest friend. And they talk about that, but they're usually just arguing and fighting. Here, we're seeing friendship reflected in a way that is actually telling the tale of their connection. It's not about the inverse of it being poised for dramatic effect. It's about the two of them sharing peanuts and reminiscing about the good times and toasting each other to good times past and future and to good friends. And, I guess this is also a friendship podcast. So, like, I just like when I see something genuine conveyed that, again, is more than just recalling the dramatic relationship to have some kind of plot movement.
Yeah, and to your X-Men point, while I mean we both love the X-Men, you're right in that a lot of like Scott and Hank specifically, right? Those are characters that once Hank joins the Avengers, Scott's just like, yeah, he graduated. All right, later. Like they don't call Hank.
No, not
and,
until X Factor.
right, and even then, it's like, and then after that, I mean, it's like years of a power struggle kind of between the two of them.
Yeah.
They are friends because they've known each other for a long time, but they don't really display a friendship, and that's what's nice here. In the middle of their sort of reminiscing about the good old days on the Force and asking if Sam asks if Twitch misses it, and he says kind of sometimes they're interrupted by a uniformed police officer who has seemingly a file, but a manila envelope for them. And they're assuming that it might be, a lab that some lab work that they asked for. I love this exclamation point panel and Twitch's wide eye because he opens it up and it's a handwritten note. It says things to do tomorrow. And there are stick figures with the names Wanda, Terry, Lil Cyan, Mrs. Twitch, Old Blind Bitch, and Twitch Brats, all with X's through them.
So they have taken notice, though, that the officer was Officer Rafferty.
Mm-hmm.
They scramble out of the bar to go try and find him. Twitch says he'll go find Spawn. I love this page. Sam looks downright worried. Twitch looks determined. And I like this page, this one panel here of the two of them where it's like Twitch crossing over Sam and he's like almost all in shadow.
Yeah.
And Twitch is like, right, I'll go find Spawn. And we get this one last super cool splash page of Spawn with fucking Cog in the background and a couple of fat happy rats on some trash cans up front, where he's just got like this glowing radiance emanating from his hand. And Cog says, it's almost time, Spawn. Are you ready? And that is the end of Spawn 84, which brings us to the back matter.
Hell yeah. So the back matter, some kind of fun stuff. In 70 in 83 in the blah blah blah, they talk about the return of Spawn the animated series. So this is season 3, and then Terry Fitzgerald talks about going to South by Southwest and how he just went to like a bunch of shows and saw L7 and
hell yeah,
a cool all girl band from Iceland called Bellatrix. He says, imagine 4 hard rockin' Bjorks, which is really funny. And there's
awesome.
some like photos and stuff of him there. There's a sign that says South by Southwest, sign bands, drink booze, and play with firearms. You're in Texas now, which is
mixed bag for me, but
certainly something. In the letters column, we have a letter that listeners, we've talked about the incredible bagel that Jim Lee once rendered. I think we've brought that up a couple of times. We get a similar type of letter to that review here. It says, Dear Todd, Spawn number 80, page 3, panel 3, the straightened tassels of the rug. Never before have I seen such a plain angle of such a mundane subject used with such fierce effectiveness. It says so much and with so little, in a way that I doubt has ever Been dared before. For God's sake, it's a panel of a clean rug. Whoever's responsible for this storytelling gem, whether it originated from Brian's script or from Greg's genius, deserves a round of applause from their peers. Just another example that illustrates that you have some of the best talent working for you who receive the least industry recognition. Well, I, for one, notice these things, and I want to thank them for giving us their best. Here's a fun
Spawn
note.
80. Well, okay,
Page
I just
3,
found
panel
it.
3.
Okay, look, it's cool, but like, it's what? They're not. They don't. It's not. It's not really part of the storytelling. I mean, it's there showing you that there's a rug with tassels. It's like a very Coen Brothers kind of shot.
I mean, how does it compare to that bagel?
Transcendent.
By the way, this is sincerely Chris Rafferty, San Francisco, California.
Well, Chris Rafferty from San Francisco, California, USA, America. I appreciate your love for art.
Also, did they end up becoming the officer in this issue, in issue 84? Maybe.
Wow.
Kind of fun. So here's what Todd says. I'm glad we could bring you so much pleasure from such a simple idea. Usually it's the big 2-page explosions and the alien Armageddon trying to annihilate the human population thing that strikes a chord in people, not the tassels of nice wool rugs. You're right in your analysis of Brian and Greg's input into the book. A vast majority of what I gave Greg was verbal over the phone, and Brian gives him a very sparse written plot. Greg Capullo
is creating Spawn, right? He's the Jack Kirby of Spawn at this time.
We've said it before and we'll say it again.
King
Greg
Capullo.
Oh my God, the absolute king. Anytime you see something that's a bit of a surprise, it could have just come from Brian's writing abilities after he saw some of the interpretation of what Greg drew, or it was Greg taking a simple, boring setup and adding a lot of bounce to it. As for your comment on them not receiving much recognition, I agree with you. I find it hard to believe that an industry where Spawn has either been the number 1, 2, or 3 book of the past 7 years, Spawn's artists or writers wouldn't appear on a top 10 or favorites list somewhere. In this case, in the Wizard magazine, although people are buying the Spawn comic at the same level that they're buying the X-Men's, which we're now in a bit of a fallow period for the X-Men compared to the early 90s, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Artists get on the list, but somehow nobody thinks highly of the artists or writers on the Spawn comic book. I've always found that to be rather odd, and given that I know a little bit about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, I also know that politics plays a big part in a lot of the decisions that go into making any top favorites list. Take that for what it is. Shots fired at Wizard magazine.
Yeah.
Somebody is really excited that Billy Kincaid is back and says... Yeah, it says, Dear Mr. McFarlane, I want to say congrats. Only you would bring back a character that was killed way, way back in the beginning of the series. Only Todd McFarlane would do that? Come on, guys. I'm referring to the Billy Kincaid character. Wasn't Billy Kincaid transformed into a Spawn in issue number 8? If so, then why doesn't he have his costume in issue number 81? Will Spawn follow Cog's advice and destroy the Malbolgia? I know you're a busy man. Could you answer these questions for me, please? Thanks in advance. Dave Rollins from Tennessee. And he says, Todd says, you're absolutely right. In issue 8, Billy Kincaid was transformed into a Spawn. It's actually the reason why he has the power to come back as a ghost that he is right now. Let's see if I can explain the details. And George, tell me if this makes any sense to you.
Okay.
Spawn is actually the commander of this army of Spawn creatures down in Hell. None of those below Spawn have the same skill or power level that an official Spawn has, so they are basically grunt soldiers. They're a fraction of what a true Spawn is, and when they come back to Earth, they do not have the same attributes that the Al Simmons Spawn character has. They have a diversified way of existing on Earth that is more intangible, and I don't have 9 million Spawns on Earth at one time. There's only the one. It doesn't that doesn't mean that there aren't ghosts and goblins that have some connection to the overall plan, and that's exactly what Billy is. The reason he doesn't have his costume on is because when he comes back to torture people on Earth, he should come back in the form of what humans last saw him as, and that was the Ice Cream Man and the Child Killer.
Well, that makes less sense than what I was imagining, but it's essentially the same thing, which is just that he's not doing the same thing as Al Simmons. He's coming back to Earth a different way.
Yeah. Why is he allowed? And also, didn't Billy say he made a different deal with Malbolgia?
That was what I was always thinking. I think Todd's just trying to over explain it a little bit, but also explain why, like, he is technically, we have established previously, and it does make sense to me that, like, Al Simmons is the Hellspawn. There are other guys who have, like, the Letha,
the suit.
symbiote or whatever and stuff like that, but they didn't pass muster and make the cut to go back to Earth and be a general. Exactly. Billy Kincaid, I think my impression was he made a separate deal with Malbolgia saying, I'll go back to Earth and bring you souls and Malbolgia was like, okay, you'll go as a ghost.
That makes more sense. That's how I understood it too.
It's basically the same thing.
All right. The next letter says, Dear Todd, I've wanted to write to you for a long time, but I've never done so. My age is 14, and I have a lot of things on my mind. So this letter is going to be long.
Oh, good.
First, I'd like to say I respect your ability as an artist, and I've wanted to meet with you since I became a Spawn fan when the movie came out in 1997. So he's only wanted to write to Todd for 2 years. But I guess that's a long time
when you're 14. Yeah.
I saw you on the cover of a magazine, Wizard, that you have retired. I have a question. I have to question why, since Spawn is getting more popular with each issue. I thought it was bad enough when you stopped penciling the comic and Capullo took over. You see, Todd, I think you're a better artist than Greg. No offense to him. Whenever Greg draws, he makes the backgrounds really dark, and the characters have too much shading. Take a look at the first issue of Spawn and compare it to the most recent issue. There's a huge difference. Believe it or not, I like the old artwork better than the current. I'm not telling you to change the comic art. All I'm trying to say is that you are the solid backbone of Spawn, and not only does Image Comics need you, I need you. Please think again before you retire. Second, why are you making stupid, no good, dumb-looking figures like Kiss and Movie Maniacs? The Spawn figures are cool, but the Kiss figures are stupid. Kiss is the dumbest music group there is. Nobody I know wants to buy these crappy toys. The colors and sculpting are great, but Kiss was just not meant to be toys or comic book characters. Let them be the dumb group they are. I mean, they were popular back in the 70s, not today. I'm so sick of seeing Kiss toys, comics, posters, statues, and other crap. If you're going to make music group figures, make them from a popular group like Korn. That would be awesome. Try it, please. Nobody cares about Kiss or Movie Maniacs either. We want to see Spawn and maybe Korn, not Kiss and that other crap. Why does this kid write like Donald Trump?
Signed Barron Trump. Signed Donald Trump Jr.
That would make more sense and be really fucked up. When will we see any old characters return? I'm sure I'm not the only person who's asked you that. All I ever see now is Spawn, Sam, Twitch, and Cog. Todd, you've turned Spawn into a freak that only cares about hanging around in the alleys, looking through files, and talking to Coglios.
Looking through files. Well, he nailed Todd's ass to the wall on that one. He got you there, Toddster.
The comic is really starting to bore me. I know that we can't see action in every issue, but come on, let's see something happen. Before I go, I'd like to comment on your best Spawn character, Tremor. Tremor is awesome.
Hell yeah.
He's just too sweet. I saw in another issue.
Too sweet. This kid's watching wrestling.
I saw in another issue that you probably would not be bringing him back. Tremor is so cool. Why get rid of your best character? Just give him a chance. If you're going to forget him, at least put him in one more comic, please. Don't let your character go to waste. Your biggest fan, George Marston, age 14.
Well, let me tell you, I would not have been writing some of that shit about Kiss at age 14.
First of all, this kid hates Kiss, and that's
I just have
funny.
To say, first off, two things. Kiss sucks, like as people, as dudes, like, but Kiss never was supposed to be action figures or comic books. That's all they should have been.
Yeah.
They should have, like, I'll agree they should have quit in the 70s. Disco Kiss was like the pinnacle, and they could have stopped there. Phantom of the Park, they knocked it out of the park. But, like, look, those toys were not made for you, 14-year-old little douchebag. They were made for people who are my age in their 40s in the 90s. So those were made for people Todd McFarlane's age And also, I will say I did own an Ace Frehley Psycho Circus action figure.
Also, Wynn
because
14 Kiss is kind of cool still.
Yeah,
I guess
well,
Korn is cooler.
I didn't like Korn though. I will say I didn't like Korn.
Me neither.
But also, I think he did make Korn toys at some point, didn't he? He probably made a Jonathan Davis or something.
Seems likely. Feels like Slipknot would be a McFarlane toy pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, that was the era too.
Yeah.
I was into Slipknot so hard for about 1 month.
Vanessa saw them a couple years ago and was like, "That was sick. Would see again." I was like, "Yeah, all right, that tracks."
The year that fucking they broke out and like got fucking huge. I was 17 and I worked at Kmart, and this really cute girl whose younger sister was on my sibling's softball team came into the Kmart and was like, "Hey, I'm going to see Slipknot. They were playing that weekend or something." And she was like, "Do you want to come? I have an extra ticket." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool, but I have to work." And then I just walked away. And then years later, I was like, she wanted to, that was a date.
100%.
That's the kind of autism I have.
Well,
so
Todd says that he's not actually retiring. It was tongue in cheek, but he's stepping back as he has with, other things so that he can do other stuff.
Like buy baseballs.
He says, yeah, exactly. He says he's still the guiding force in making sure the books stay on track. He's basically the editor. I mean, that's kind of his role.
Yeah, at this point.
He's excited, though, because there's going to be more titles in 1999, and he's excited to put out more stuff. And he wouldn't be able to put out this much stuff if he was penciling the book because he doesn't have any time. As for your comments on Kiss and the toys and the books I do, with your young age of 14, potentially you didn't grow up in the era when Kiss were music gods to a great many of us. First of all, definitely didn't grow up in that era, Todd. He's 14. No. This person they were born in 1985. So, yeah, they did not grow up with the heyday of Kiss. These icons have been with us for nearly 3 decades and have always been a part of our lives. Although you are not into them personally, I think you'd be surprised at how well the book is doing and the great number of toys that are being bought worldwide. This is a group that has lived in the entertainment industry for more than 25 years, blah, blah, blah. And in terms of characters, one of the books coming out is Spawn the Undead. So he also just says, Tremor's not coming back for a little while. So, bummer. There's also this hilarious Austin Powers ad.
I have that action figure
that says "Awesome Powers."
In
issue 84,
yeah, baby.
In the blah blah blah, we get a picture of Terry Fitzgerald with a Kiss cover band.
Kiss sucks.
The real Kiss. And he's talking about E3. Terry Fitzgerald, by the way, I would love to talk to this guy. His life was crazy for a decade.
Terry Fitzgerald, come on the podcast.
But just he just went to all the trade shows and just sold Spawn stuff. And Todd was like, I don't know, but just, I don't know, sell some Spawn. And he was sick. I'm just going to go to parties and sell Spawn. Sounds awesome. In 84, there's a hugely, I'm not going to read this whole thing. But it's a 26-year-old from Union, New Jersey, who basically is I don't know why you've allowed for 13 and 11-year-olds to watch the Spawn movie and write in and say that they've seen the PG-13 and also the R-rated version because they shouldn't have access to that. Okay, and blah, blah, blah. And he says, and also, why don't you promote the comics more in your media empire? I don't give a shit about all the other stuff, but you should try to sell more comics. And Todd says, thanks for the terrific letter, Jonathan. First,
thanks for the terrific letter.
Yeah, I appreciate your concerns. This is the only letter in the Spawning Ground, actually. That's how long it is. First, although I appreciate your concerns, I disagree with you regarding how much responsibility lies with the creator of entertainment versus the consumers. I can't believe I intentionally glossed over the matter of parental involvement in letters to 11 and 13-year-olds, but keep in mind that I reply to several letters every month, and I don't want to keep harping on the same topic and become repetitive. The warning labels say parental discretion advised, which means that kids can watch the program if their parents allow it. I was under the impression that the parents of those particular 11 and 13-year-olds did allow it. Kid is going to watch an R-rated movie if his parents let him. So it's really not worth my time to scold kids when it's the parents we rely on to make those individual family decisions. Regarding the comic books, I do promote them, but when I provide an interview or an interview is 30 minutes worth of information, it usually gets edited down to 3 minutes or 3-paragraph story. Promoting comics must be a shared effort. I can take Spawn out of the comic book world and create new potential customers, but the comic book sellers need to get out there and bring in those new customers. I mean, there's also just less and less comic book stores, and he kind of brings that up too, where he's like my first priority isn't to create Spawn comic book fans. I'm looking at the bigger picture, meaning I want to create Spawn fans. Period. I don't believe I should be trying to sell them every product. The sad reality of the situation is that comic books are sold mainly in comic shops, and not everybody frequents comic shops. Just because one Spawn um, product is popular doesn't mean people will rush out and buy it in another form. Let's take Star Wars, for example. Just because that movie's doing unbelievably well doesn't mean that everyone's going to say, by gosh, I need a comic also to get my Star Wars fix. Which is funny because this is exactly what we got once we got the sequel trilogy 20 years
Right.
later.
Well, and we also know that, though, that something having a movie doesn't necessarily drive people to read that comic.
Yeah. But yeah, so this kid also says, I will read this other part of his letter. He says, the power meter is a problem. The idea of a character with a limited power is a terrific innovation, but it severely limits his lifespan. You can hardly expect a character to endure 50 or 60 years with a finite supply of energy. You've solved one aspect of the problem by enabling Spawn to have some natural powers that do not drain his energy. But I, for one, would like a return of the meter, even if it remains constant for the next decade. My suggestion is to put it on the inside front cover along with all the other information currently there. This way, the reader can constantly be reminded of the limits placed on Spawn without having it spelled out for them in the text of every issue. And Todd actually says, I like your idea about bringing back the meter. We'll discuss it, so be on the lookout. It might pop up on the inside front cover, just for those hardcore fans who know what it means.
All right.
So, and then the rest is like ads. There's a Family Values Tour 98
Sick
poster. Oh no, sorry, it's not. It's a concert video. Oh, there's this Ozzy Osbourne figure.
hell yeah, that's right. I remember that one
with this art promoting it,
I
which is
remember
pretty
that.
sick.
Diary of a Madman.
Yeah, pretty sick. And there's the tour dates for the McFarlane collection, the crown jewel of sports memorabilia for all the baseballs. And there's a new page with just special events of where Todd McFarlane Productions will be. They will be at Ozfest, Vans Warp Tour, and Wizard World Chicago.
Hell yeah.
And there's a Spawn van.
Hell yeah.
Which kind of
Hell
rules.
yeah.
And that's it. Final thoughts on Spawn 83 and 84, George.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This is what I think right now. I'm enjoying this storyline. I think these issues overall work pretty good. We're kind of at the point where these are just another 2 issues of Spawn, but that means something pretty good. You know what I mean? We're in the era where just 2 issues of Spawn is a pretty good, pretty solid, good read, fun. Lots of great art, some really kick-ass, really incredible pictures in there. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying the storyline. I like that it's kind of evolving. It might be running a little long, so I hope it's wrapping up soon, but it seems to be heading towards its conclusion. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're really building in an exciting way towards 100. You know, I think we keep bringing up the milestone issues because Todd made such a big deal about the road to 50 when we were around the 30 range. We're now 20 issues out from 100, and it feels like mounting pressure, mounting tension. I really enjoy that Spawn has evolved as a character. I love Holguin holding back on whatever this plan is, right? We're getting a lot of great final pages when it's not the talking heads. But we're getting great final pages of just like, oh shit, like next issue.
Something's about to happen.
Yeah, stuff's going to happen.
Or
Billy
off.
Kincaid's back. Jason Wynn's back. Like, what does this mean? You know, I do think in these 2 issues, the Jason Wynn stuff doesn't really pay off. It's definitely the B plot that kind of masquerades as like an A plot for a second there. The pacing, I think, in these 2 issues is a little odd based on what we've gotten more recently. But I think that's because, and no pun intended here, they're moving the chains kind of issues, right?
Right.
They have to position characters in certain ways to just sort of get them to the place where there's going to be a really kind of bombastic conclusion to whatever this is. So And also, I love Sam and Twitch. The stuff with Wanda and Cyan works. The stuff with Twitch's family works. Even the stuff with Silbert, I really like Silbert too. I like them having like another ally. Human characters are something that are pretty essential, I think, to superhero comics. Because if everybody, I mean, like that's the Incredibles thing, right? Well, if everybody's special, nobody is. And it's the problem that books like the X-Men sometimes do have, which is like if everybody's an X-Man, it's like a little harder when you don't have like, I don't know, Trish Tilby or somebody or Candy Southern or just like a normal guy on the street who's like getting affected by the things that are happening, right?
Well, that's the thing that happens in the MCU all too often is that you never see a non-superhero person. They're not saving anyone
Right.
except for like the vague concept of reality. And I like a lot of those movies, but that's a conversation or that's a common criticism that I often agree with. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I think, it's interesting we didn't even talk about the Fantastic Four trailer that we both really enjoyed.
Oh my God, it was so good.
But
that was this week. That's how all I have done this week is write about shit based on that. I explained the sixth cosmos.
Oh, amazing.
I got paid to do that. So I'm a lot more like Hunter S. Thompson than your weird journalism student guy. I'm out here explaining dead realities.
But, I think it's not the job of entertainment and especially giant corporations and their IP to be some sort of guiding light during a dark time. However, we have a year where we have a Superman and a Fantastic Four movie coming out. And
in the same month.
Yeah. And I would be lying if I wasn't just really hoping for them to remind me the things that I really love about those characters, that I really love about those comics.
Because they're things that I think we really need right now. Both of those, Fantastic Four and Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need myths. We need poetry. We need poets.
Yeah, whereas I also feel like we're a week before the new Captain America, and I am not as excited for it in the sense that it just feels
like they had to put out something and they had to chop through all the politics they wanted to put in there and make it palatable to enough audiences and now be not so radical and all this shit and whatever. It's got a Hulk in it and that's going to be cool. It's got the leader in it. I hope that's cool. So whatever. This is not Marvelography. But all that aside, yeah, I agree with your assessment here, and I like that this does keep adding a little bit more of that human side.
Totally. Before we go, recommendations for our listeners this week, George?
The world's really fucked right now, and shit feels really stupid and bad. And something I've been trying to do this week that I'm going to go ahead and recommend everybody else to. I've been trying to make a little bit of punk rock, and I'm working on that. And I'm going to go ahead and say, do something punk. And when I say that, what I mean is use whatever tools you have to make art that speaks truth to power.
Fuck yeah. That's great. My recommendation this week is, I just got this in the mail, is the Comics Courier. Tiffany Babb is the sort of publisher of this, former colleague at Popverse. It's a cool like newspaper that has comics comics criticism in it. With some work by Douglas Wolk, whose book I had brought up a couple weeks ago, and an interview with Patrick Horvath. Did you read Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees? Great book. So just some really good stuff in here. Some special thanks to some folks that we've worked with before, Kat Kalamia. So I recommend the Comics Courier if you're just looking for a new way to get some comics criticism. It's pretty rough out there these days.
Yeah.
Not like back in our heyday, George, a decade ago.
That's right.
Decade plus ago. Jesus.
I've been doing it. I've been in the review mines since 2009.
2012 for me. Or 2011? 2011.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago, and things have definitely changed. We don't do it the same way. Yeah. So that's cool. I really like that. That's a cool recommendation.
Cool. Well, if you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever podcatcher you use. We're easy to find at Spawnography or at Spawnography Pod on various social media. feel free to give us a follow. New episodes come out every Monday. We've been doing this for a goddamn year, and we've gotten through 80 some odd issues. So it looks like we'll be doing this for as long as Todd McFarlane keeps putting out Spawn comics. Next
What
week's
a year. I'm going to interrupt you real quick and
Yeah.
just say one more time. It's been a great fucking year of Spawnography, I think. And I just love that we've got some folks who continually listen and they offer their feedback, and we hear from people. We've built a Spawn community and continued to build a Spawn community, and I just think that's so great. And I love that we get to do this every week. And also, 2 people in the Spawn community did call our bluff, you told me.
Oh yeah, we will be covering Daring Escape. So look out for that. We will be covering the Harry Houdini miniseries.
There we go.
Because you demanded it.
By popular demand.
Yeah. So thanks for that. Spawn does appear, so we kind of have to. Which I guess also means we could cover Invincible. Just saying.
That's true. We could cover all of Invincible.
We could
I'm not doing that.
We could cover that one issue of Sonic the Hedgehog that Spawn guest appears in. There's a lot that we could cover. But they didn't demand that. They demanded this. So the Spawn community gets what the Spawn community wants.
That's right. Whatever baby wants.
Anyway, if you like the show, more importantly than leaving a review, tell a friend and just tune in. And if you want to send us an email, you can send us one at spawnographypod@gmail.com. And yeah, I think that's it. George, I've got one last thing for you. For Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn.